special ministerial session on small island developing states, the least developed countries, and certainly the landlocked developing countries. So thank you again, Minister, for joining us, and please let me turn the floor over to you.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here and to listen to all the very interesting models that different countries have been undertaken. For Nepal, 83% of our land is either hills or mountains. And most of our land holdings are small, and it's mostly on slopes. So farming in Nepal is very, very difficult. And for a long time, it has been associated with subsistence economies and poverty. So one of the things that struck me as the speaker before me talked was about the image people have of the farmer. So in Nepal, most of the farmers don't want their children to become farmers. And that is one of the biggest challenges, because there's a lot of out-migration of youth to now all over the world. I think most countries in the world now know what a Nepali looks like and how hardworking a Nepali is, because compared to the lives we have in our hills, everywhere else is easy to work. So now remittance is our biggest source of income. It's almost 35%, and farming now is the second. It's 23%, though it still employs almost 80% of our people, but it's mostly in the informal sector. Given saying that, the other challenges now we are having to contend with more and more is climate change, erratic rainfalls, glacier retreats, and the general breaking down of the slopes, because there's nobody to tend to them anymore. And also now there's a new challenge for us. Since a lot of the men and younger people are not there, we are having a pestilence almost of wild monkeys and of wild boars and even porcupines, which come and attack the crops which are ready to be harvested. So it's becoming quite an area of national debate. Even things like this. We are a small country. It looks like a small issue, but it is becoming an issue of great importance for most of our farmers. So having said this, the other thing, some of the things which we have now worked hard upon and are doing good at is things like not looking at agriculture only as agricultural sector, but also linking it to nutrition and to health and to education. So many of our school feeding programs now buy supplies from the local farmers. So that is allowing a small economy by itself to evolve. And that has been one of our successes now. And I think our health minister recently even got a prize for our progress in nutrition. So these are some of the success stories we have. The other thing that we now have is a data bank of the staple crops like paddy, wheat, corn. So we have enlisted the amount of seeds we have, and any farmer can access that now to say what is the demand they actually want, what is the quantity, and all levels of government is active in that. So we have the central data bank, then we have the province level and the local level, which are either the urban or rural municipalities, which can help the farmers access these systems. But having said that, we are still not self-sufficient in things like seeds for vegetables. So I was talking to the Joint Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture. He came with me, and he told me that we buy seeds from even as far away as Italy. So I don't know whether that's impressive or whether it's a bit sad, because we could be producing our own seeds. So these are some of the things we need to look at. We are already looking at, and we need to improve it better. Why I'm so interested to be here, Madam Beth, is prior to my job as a foreign minister, I was the parliamentary committee head on agriculture. So this is an issue very close to my soul. And given the issue about how agriculture is viewed in our country, when I tried to take on the job as the parliamentary committee head for agriculture, a lot of my colleagues said, why do you want to do that? Go to something more interesting. Because agriculture has really a very strong association with poverty in countries like ours. And it's not something educated people do. So how to change that perspective of making agriculture more interesting by having access to AI, digitization, drones, better equipment, better marketing. So now there is a shift because of our the strategic plan that Nepal is now implementing. That's Nepal's food system transformation strategic plan. There is now a lot of emphasis on the involvement of private sector. And large private sector companies are coming into it, but these are all homegrown companies. So these are not big multinationals. But what they are now doing is encouraging farmers to look at what the government has been doing, looking at like a potato area or an area where wheat is grown or where black beans has grown or where lemon is farmed, lemon trees have been growing. So they are now being tied up to these sectors, and the model that has been developed by the government and organizations like IFA, the FAO, is now being taken over by the private sector. So this is a way that we are trying to progress forward, where a farmer is assured of a market. And the marketing is done by these slightly larger groups which have access to, say, supermarkets or to food markets. But the other areas that we still feel challenge is in the feminization of agriculture. The women are becoming, they are doing more farming, but our models still say things like, the head of the household has to put in like maybe the collateral, and maybe it's a man who's not even there. Maybe he's, working in some other country. So we have to still look at issues like this. But we are also doing innovations such as making snow ponds. So when there's, because we do a lot of apple farming now in the mountains, people are digging out ponds and storing it with snow in the winters. And when the snow, and of course it's being covered by something, and when the spring comes, when there is no water, then that is being used as a source of water. The other things we still need to look at is, of course, how our distribution of inputs work, such as fertilizers. Nepal subsidizes almost 80% of all the fertilizer in Nepal is subsidized. But we still have to innovate about how the distribution is done. Till now it's done through cooperatives, and it has worked to a certain extent. But now as the farm holding size gets larger, these cooperatives are only reaching out to small farmers. So what happens to the middle-sized farmers? So there are a lot of questions that need to be answered, and I hope in the coming days, as we discuss these issues more, there will be many lessons that we can learn from other countries and share as well. And I really appreciate for being able to attend this forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I don't think I was anticipating when we put this session together and talking about challenges that wildlife infestations would probably make the top of the list, but clearly some very practical, very unique country level challenges that also have to be very seriously taken into consideration as we protect farmers and provide them with support. And again, thank you so much for, I think, your personal passion that you're bringing into your role as foreign minister. That's a very critical role for many of us in agriculture, I think, as we do realize that in whether it's national institutions, whether it's in societal settings, this impression of agriculture as something less than innovative, less than meaningful, or less than impactful, your voice and your position and your heartfelt commitment to farming and agriculture is clearly inspirational to all of us. So thank you again for being here and for putting more lessons on the table, I think, for further discussion. I want to go to our next